Chapter 3261. Speaking of which, this matter was originally Manager Jin's unkindness. Steward Qin's approach is also very normal. It can be said that it's an eye for an eye. When Xiren chuckled, the competition between the two people in charge of the two great forces was really exciting. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. In my opinion, I'm afraid Manager Jin won't be able to sit still. On the auction stage, Enya's face, which had always been extremely calm and indifferent, stiffened when she saw the completely uncontrollable increase in price. As soon as she heard that voice, she had already determined that the other party was someone from the auction house that she was extremely familiar with. At that time, she had already understood Manager Jin's intentions. However, the person in the other box was unusually persistent. No matter how they raised the price, the other party always followed suit. In her opinion, the other party was simply deliberately looking for trouble. If this continued, once this truly sky-high price was spread out, everyone with discerning eyes would know the real situation. In the end, wouldn't it become a joke? Thinking of this, Enya couldn't help but feel a little anxious. This situation couldn't continue like this. Either the auction house would choose to give up, or they could only persuade the other party to give up. Otherwise, this auction would be ruined because of this increase in price. Enya immediately gave a look to the person next to her. After that person understood, he quickly went to find Manager Jin. This matter was completely out of their control. If they didn't stop it now, it would be too late. Manager Jin obviously didn't expect Steward Qin to be so stubborn. He had been thinking about how to explain this matter to Di Lao. He didn't expect smoke to come out of the east and fire to come out of the west. It really made him anxious. How much has the price been raised now? Manager Jin asked. It's already 4 million spirit stones. The situation is completely out of control. All the guests are talking about this matter. Hearing this, Manager Jin couldn't help but pat his forehead. A deep sense of helplessness appeared on his face. It seemed that he had still underestimated Steward Qin's anger. He was afraid that if he couldn't give a reasonable explanation, Steward Qin would continue to make trouble. I understand. I'll deal with it. Steward Qin waved his hand, then sighed and immediately walked to the box where Steward Qin was. In the end, he still had to deal with the matter he had caused. He couldn't let Steward Qin ruin this auction. In the private room, when Steward Qin saw Steward Jin walk in with a smile on his face, he immediately understood the latter's plan. His eyes couldn't help but contain some sarcasm. Steward Qin, I didn't expect you to come to the auction, Steward Jin said with a smile. Since Manager Jin specially organized this auction, shouldn't you have expected that I would come? Steward Qin looked at Steward Jin coldly. His attitude was no longer the same as when he was familiar with Steward Jin. Instead, it was full of unfamiliarity and hostility. Hearing the hidden meaning in Steward Qin's words, Steward Jin also understood that it was useless for him to continue being so careless. He couldn't help but say, Steward Qin, why don't we discuss this matter properly? If this continues, it won't do us any good. However, Steward Qin sneered. I don't care if it's good for me or not. As long as it's bad for your auction house, it's fine. Chapter 3262. Looking at Steward Qin's unyielding attitude, Manager Jin also felt a burst of embarrassment in his heart. He and Steward Qin had known each other for so many years, but this was the first time he had seen the latter being so difficult to talk to. It seemed that it would be extremely difficult to mend their relationship this time. Steward Qin, why are you doing this? No matter what, we have been friends for so many years. If things get to this point, it will be very awkward for us to meet again in the future, Manager Jin said. Hearing this, Steward Qin sat up straight and looked at Manager Jin with a smile that was not a smile. However, the depths of his eyes were filled with sarcasm and ridicule. Manager Jin, you were the one who did this first, and now you're putting all these problems on me. Isn't this a bit too laughable? Steward Qin, things are not what you think. If it's not what I think, then what is it? Steward Qin raised his eyebrows. I told you that I needed the Tears of Frostflame to discuss a business deal with the other party. You first promised me that you would do your best to help, and then you didn't respond to any news. You directly took out the Tears of Frostflame to auction. Wasn't it to lure the other party out? I've been doing business for so many years and you want to cut me off and do it so obviously. What do you think I'll do? At this moment, Steward Cheen could no longer suppress his anger. He did not believe that Steward Cheen, as a friend for so many years, would do such a thing, but now that things had come to this, it was useless for him to not believe it. Looking at Steward Cheen's furious appearance, the helplessness and awkwardness on Manager Jin's face became even more intense. He immediately said, Steward Cheen, why don't you stop bidding first, and then I'll tell you about this matter properly. How about it? What a joke. Steward Cheen laughed mockingly. If I stop now, is there a need for you to continue talking to me? Manager Jin waved his hand. In any case, we have been friends for many years. I promise you that I will give you a satisfactory explanation. How about it? If I don't do it, you can tell me this news. I won't say anything. Steward Cheen glanced at Manager Jin indifferently. After seeing that the other party's expression was extremely serious, his expression became a little better. If you dare to trick me again in this matter, then there will be nothing to discuss between us in the future. Don't worry, it definitely won't happen. Manager Jin hurriedly promised. Seeing this, Steward Cheen was silent for a moment before giving up on bidding. Enya, who was on the auction stage, quietly heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that Steward Cheen had finally stopped bidding. Fortunately, she did not cause too much trouble, and the Tears of Cold Flame was also taken back by the Golden Flame auction house. You can speak now. From beginning to end, Steward Cheen's face was cold. If the other party couldn't give him a satisfactory answer, he wouldn't let it go. Most importantly, no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't think of any other reason for Steward Cheen to do this. Steward Cheen sat down beside Steward Cheen. His chubby face was still full of smiles. Steward Cheen, to be honest, I really don't have any thoughts of snatching business from you. Steward Cheen went straight to the point. Then what is it for? Chapter 3263. I also asked the reason for doing this, but the higher-ups are the higher-ups. If they don't want to tell me the reason, I can't do anything about it. You and I have been old friends for so many years. Although we sometimes scheme against each other, it's only because of the benefits. I really haven't done such a thing to undermine you. As he spoke, Manager Jin observed the change in Steward Cheen's expression. After discovering that Steward Cheen was still indifferent, he couldn't help but say, I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. There are some things that I'm forced to do. Steward Cheen looked at Manager Jin with a complicated gaze. For a moment he couldn't be sure whether what Manager Jin said was true or false. However, he also vaguely felt that what Steward Cheen said might not be false. After all, they had known each other for so many years, and he also had some understanding of the people behind Manager Jin. Then you don't know the fundamental reason? Steward Cheen was somewhat incredulous. If it wasn't for business, what's the use of luring them out? Manager Jin shook his head. This is also what I don't understand. In fact, although I have been collecting the Tears of Cold Flame all these years, I don't know what they are used for. Don't be angry with me because of this matter. After all, we have been friends for so many years. Next time, as long as I can give you the benefits within my ability, I will definitely give it to you. How about it? Hearing Manager Jin's words, Steward Cheen did not immediately answer. In fact, he also had some doubts about Bailey Hongzhuang wanting to use the Tears of Cold Flame to refine pills. He always felt that this matter was not so simple, but when he thought about it carefully, he did not know where the problem came from. Is what you said true? Manager Jin nodded with a serious expression. I can swear that there is absolutely no deception. Steward Cheen looked at Manager Jin for a long time before saying, I will believe you for the time being. If such a thing happens again in the future, don't blame me for not taking into account our past friendship. Not only that, I have one more request. Seeing that Steward Cheen had finally relented, Manager Jin heaved a sigh of relief. Speak. If you want to participate in this business, you can't leave me behind. Steward Cheen said slowly. How could he allow the Golden Flame auction house to snatch away the business opportunity that he had found with great difficulty? At the very least, they should get a share of the loot. As soon as this was said, Manager Jin couldn't help but frown. I'm afraid I can't make the decision on this matter. You don't have to tell me all this nonsense. If you can't do it, then the trouble between us will never end. After thinking for a moment, Manager Jean said, I can't guarantee this matter, but I will try my best. Moreover, I don't think the decision made by the higher-ups is necessarily for business. Although I told them that you intend to use the tears of glacial flame to do business, they don't know what kind of business it is. I don't think it's possible for you to go through so much trouble for a business that you don't understand. Why don't you wait for my news first? We'll talk after everything is clear. What do you think? Chapter 3264. It seems that Steward Jean and Steward Qin have reached an agreement. Seeing that Steward Qin had stopped bidding, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. Di Beichun smiled faintly. It's absolutely impossible for Steward Jean to sit back and watch the situation become like this. I just don't know how they talked about it. With Steward Qin's character, if he doesn't get some benefits, he will definitely not give up. When Xiren raised his eyebrows, but this kind of thing obviously has nothing to do with us. Next, we can only wait for Steward Jean to contact us. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two nodded. They only hoped that what Steward Jean talked to them about was not something they could not do. After all, the Golden Flame auction house was their only hope to get the tears of frigid heat. Once the negotiation failed, then all their hopes would be destroyed. There were no more problems in the following auction. Although the things being auctioned were very good, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were focused on the tears of frigid heat and did not have the time to pay attention to these things. Therefore, they did not bid for anything in the entire auction. Those four guys participated in the entire auction but did not bid for anything. It seems that they are also four poor ghosts. Until the auction came to an end, Lu Jinggang could not help but look at the box upstairs, his face full of sarcasm. When bidding for the map before, he thought that these guys had a lot of resources. He did not expect that from the beginning to the end. They just came here to look and did not make a move at all. There were so many treasures in a normal auction. He did not believe that they would not be able to enter the other party's eyes. It has only been half a year since they came to Penglai Island. It is not easy for them to earn spirit stones. They did that on purpose to make us spend a lot of money. Speaking of which, it is really abominable. Guijun's face was very ugly. With their previous wealth, they did not care about 10,000 spirit stones at all. But now they had to pay tens of thousands of spirit stones, which was a big loss for them. Gao Hanchuan's face had been gloomy since the start of the auction. Since he met Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, he had already suffered a lot in the hands of these four guys. This time he had actually fallen into the hands of the other party. Even if he didn't want to admit it, he had to admit that this series of events had really hit him hard. He had been in Penglai Island for so many years and had always felt that he was very good. However, he did not expect that he would be fooled by four newcomers. One could imagine the displeasure in his heart. When we get back, we'll take our time to plan. If we can't tear these four fellows into 1,000 pieces, I'll never be satisfied. Gao Hanchun said fiercely. These four people had become a demon in his heart. If he couldn't kill these four people with his own hands, his cultivation would be greatly affected. As a cultivator, the most worrying thing was to have a demon in his heart. He had already felt that these four guys were his demon. Upon hearing Gao Hanchuan's words, Guijun and Lu Jinggang nodded their heads. They had already reached the end of their patience with these four fellows. The sooner they finished them off, the easier it would be for them to completely relax and avoid being unhappy. Chapter 3265. As soon as they walked out of the private room, they saw Steward Qin, who had also come out of the private room next door. When Steward Qin saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, he couldn't help but look surprised. Obviously, he didn't expect to see Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three here. He was very clear about the Golden Flame auction house's requirements for private rooms. Logically speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three could only appear in the ordinary seats. It was impossible for them to appear here. For a moment, Steward Qin also had some doubts in his heart. Could it be that Steward Jean lied to him again? In fact, the Golden Flame auction house had already contacted Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, So they arranged for them to be in the private room? Seeing Steward Qin's appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three revealed a faint smile. However, in order to not let others find out that they knew each other, neither side said a word. They only gave each other a look and tacitly left the Golden Flame auction house. This time when they left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three went through the auction house's VIP passage. There was no congestion at all, and it was very smooth for them to leave. I wonder if Gao Hanchun and the other two will be waiting for us at the door. Xiren raised his eyebrows. He had already felt Gao Hanchuan's strong murderous intent when they were in conflict. After the auction of the map fragments, Gao Hanchun probably hated them to the extreme. Dibeichen chuckled. It's useless even if they wait. Our way out is on the other side of the street. For the sake of our treasure map, even if they don't come to us, we have to take the initiative to look for them. Xiao Hei's eyes flashed with excitement. She was really curious about the situation after the 4 map fragments were pieced together. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, that's true. But before that, we have to wait for news from the Golden Flame auction house. Between the two, the Tears of Frigid Flame was still the most important. Just as Xiren had expected, Gao Hanchun and the other three didn't leave after leaving the auction house. They did plan to make a long-term plan before making a move, but before that, they had to know where Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three lived. The entire Penglai Island was very large. If they were to search for them one by one, it would be too unrealistic. However, they waited until the cultivators who participated in the auction had left, but they didn't see any trace of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. Do they know that we're going to find trouble with them, so they're avoiding us and thinking of ways to escape? After Lu Jiangang confirmed that there was no one else in the auction house, he couldn't help but frown. This was really troublesome. Think so? Gue Jun's expression was extremely ugly. He did not expect that he would end up with nothing. With their cultivation, they are no match for us at all, so they can only hide from us. Of course, how are we going to find them? Gao Hanchuan's face darkened. Forget it, let's go back first. If they're deliberately avoiding us, there's nothing we can do. But as long as they're still on Penglai Island, we'll definitely find them. After today's incident, many people must have noticed them. Plus, they're related to the Golden Flame auction house. It shouldn't be too difficult for us to find them. Chapter 3266. With the perfect end of the auction, Manager Jean immediately went to find Elder D. No matter how unwilling he was to face Elder D, there was no point in not reporting the truth. Elder D, today's probing plan failed. Manager Jean lowered his head. I originally planned to test if D-Bei and the others were interested in the Tears of Frosty Flame, but Manager Qin's appearance ruined this plan. During the entire auction, D-Bei and the others did not win anything. Elder D glanced at Manager Jean indifferently and nodded. I understand. Seeing that Elder D did not have any reaction, Manager Jean could not help but be surprised. He thought that Elder D would scold him to his face. Then I'll go look for them later and test their strength? Manager Jean asked tentatively. No need. Manager Jean was stunned and did not seem to react. He could not help but ask again, Elder D, are you saying that I don't need to go? There's no need to continue with this plan. You can leave. I want to be alone. Elder D waved his hand. There was a hint of exhaustion in his expression. Ever since he returned from chatting with Diyujue, his mood was very low. Seeing the young master in so much pain and not being able to do anything to help, this feeling was also very painful. If he could not find the young master, the hope of finding him in the future would become lower and lower. The problem with his physique was very likely to take the young master's life. All these years, he had always been very clear about the pain of Diyujue and the others. If this continued, he really did not know what kind of scene it would be. He was afraid that no one in the family would be able to accept it. It was a pity that he had stayed on Penglai Island for so many years and could not find any news. He was really too useless. Manager Jean looked at Elder D, who was obviously not interested in talking to him. He was secretly surprised and could not help but let out a sigh of relief. This way he could also explain to Manager Qin. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to the inn, They stayed in the room and did not go anywhere because they were waiting for Manager Jin's arrival. If they guessed correctly, Manager Jin should be coming to find them soon. After all, this was the reason why the latter took out the Tears of Frosty Flame to auction. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not receive any news in the inn for a few days. They immediately felt that the situation was a little strange. It's been 3 days and there's still no news from the Golden Flame auction house. Could something have happened? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but frown. No matter what the reason was, 3 days was enough time for the other party to find them. Di Beichen's expression was somewhat complicated. Could it be that our judgment was wrong? That shouldn't be. Indeed. In the end, the Golden Flame auction house took back the Tears of Frosty Flame. It doesn't make sense at all. Di Beichen's face darkened. But if we're right, how could they have not made any moves? Chapter 3267. As time passed, the mood of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 became heavier and heavier. At this point, they naturally knew that the Golden Flame auction house would not come looking for them. Otherwise, it would be impossible for there to be no news for so long. Do you think it's possible that Manager Jin and Manager Qin have already reached an agreement? So they cancelled this plan? When Xiren voiced out his guess, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows were slightly furrowed, and there was some uncertainty in her expression. If an agreement is really reached, then Steward Qin should inform us. Perhaps Steward Qin is still unwilling to reveal our identities, so he waited for us to return before discussing in detail? Shangguan Yingying said. Di Beichen shook his head and said in a low voice, no, if Steward Qin and Manager Jin could really reach an agreement, they would have already reached an agreement before. How could such a storm happen? With Steward Qin's personality, once he obtains the Tears of Cold Flame, he will definitely inform us as soon as possible. Even if he doesn't come personally, he can find someone else to inform us. He was very clear about Steward Qin's curiosity and dedication to Bailey Hongzhuang's alchemy. As long as it was successful, he would definitely want to talk about this business with Bailey Hongzhuang as soon as possible, and not have any news like now. Doesn't that mean we don't have any hope at all? Xiren's face paled. Compared to the expectations they had when they came, the current situation had given them a huge blow. If it really doesn't work, we'll take the initiative to look for the Golden Flame auction house. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, her delicate little face filled with determination. No matter what, at least we can know the other party's conditions. It's better than guessing here. This was their only hope. If they couldn't get the Tears of Cold Flame, they wouldn't be able to return to the magic refining tower. In fact, she had already made all the preparations. If this still didn't work, then they could only snatch it. In order to transform Di Beichen's physique, they were willing to do anything. No matter what method they used, as long as they could achieve their goal, they would not hesitate. Shangguan Yingying nodded. Hongzhuang is right. Why don't we go to the Golden Flame auction house and ask for a Tears of Frigid Heat? No matter what the conditions are, as long as we can do it, it's fine. What I'm afraid of is that no matter what conditions we offer, they won't agree. When Xiren sighed, he could faintly feel that the Tears of Frigid Flame would be of great use to the Golden Flame auction house. If the Golden Flame auction house didn't value them, then all their efforts would be for naught. For a time, everyone's mood became heavier. They had originally planned to look for Gao Hanchuan's group after the matter of the Tears of Frigid Flame was settled. Unfortunately, there had been no news of the Tears of Frigid Flame. Therefore, they had no interest in Gao Hanchuan's group. At the same time, Gao Hanchuan's group was constantly looking for Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4. Now that the grand auction had ended, many cultivators on Penglai Island had left. Therefore, it was much easier to find them than before. Chapter 3268. Where did these 4 fellows run off to? Lu Jiangang frowned. We've been looking for them for so long, but we haven't seen any trace of them. Could they have left already? Guijun shook his head. That shouldn't be possible. Big Brother has been keeping an eye on the pier, and didn't see any trace of them leaving. I think they must still be on Penglai Island, but we haven't found them yet. We've already searched the entire Penglai Island, but unfortunately, we can't search room by room. Could it be that they've been staying in their rooms the whole time? Lu Jiangong's eyes lit up as he voiced out his doubts. If that was the case, he felt that the four of them were too strange. That is possible. Guijun pondered and said, could it be that they know that we're looking for them, so they're hiding? Now that Mo Xingyu and the rest have left Penglai Island and I've seen the recent movements of the Golden Flame auction house, they don't seem to have any contact with them. In that case, they basically don't have any backing. It's very easy for us to take action against them. Lu Jiangang was a little anxious. They finally found a good opportunity, and if they let Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest slip away, they didn't know when they would meet them again. Forget it. Don't be anxious. Let's continue looking. They can't possibly stay in there forever. Guijun sighed. They had no other choice but to search for a needle in a haystack. On this day, someone knocked on the door of Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest's room. Knock knock. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest couldn't help but look at each other. Their eyes lit up. Could it be that the people from the Golden Flame auction house were looking for them? However, when the door opened, they didn't see anyone from the Golden Flame auction house but a waiter from the inn. When the waiter saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest looking at him, his eyes flashed with surprise. He then said, "Young master, there's a young master downstairs looking for you." Di Beichen listened to the waiter's words and his handsome and elegant face revealed a trace of surprise. Looking for me? The waiter nodded. It's the young master that you invited to drink with you that day. Do you still remember him? It turns out to be him. Di Beichen suddenly understood and nodded. I got it. After the attendant left, Di Beichen turned around and exchanged glances with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two. He really didn't expect Di Yujua to come looking for him. Could he be here on behalf of the Golden Flame auction house? When Xiren asked immediately, I don't know, but I think that's probably not the reason. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. If they're here to discuss a deal with us, the Golden Flame auction house only needs to send manager Jean. I'm afraid they don't need someone with a higher status to come here personally. Beichen, go take a look first. It's always good to get some information. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. You're close friends, aren't you? Even though this fate came out of nowhere, it wasn't a bad thing. Then I'll go down first. Di Beichen stroked Bailey Hongzhuang's soft hair and his eyes were full of affection. Go ahead. Chapter 3269. Hongzhuang, don't you think that if Beichen were to ask that person for the medicine, his chances of success would be much higher? Shang Guaningning couldn't help but speak up. She had wanted to say this earlier. Since their hopes were already slim, then Di Beichen's friend was their biggest hope. Even Steward Jean couldn't make a decision about the Tears of Glacial Flame. This person's status was higher than Steward Jin's, so he should be able to make a decision. At the very least, there was a glimmer of hope. However, just as she was about to speak, she was stopped by Xiren, so she didn't say anything. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Actually, I think so too. Then why didn't you remind Beichen just now? This is our only hope. Shang Guaningning looked puzzled. This was related to Di Beichen's life. Beichen should know this better than we do. He doesn't want their relationship to have an additional layer of benefits. Once he asks for help, then this simple friendship will no longer be pure. Beichen has his own ideas on what to do. If we force this idea on him, it will only put pressure on him. A faint smile appeared on her delicate face. She was as elegant and indifferent as a lotus flower that had just emerged from the water, but revealed a sense of wisdom and gentleness. When Xiren quietly gave Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up, the more time he spent with Bailey Hongzhuang, the more he understood why Di Beichen, who had never been tempted by women, was so affectionate towards Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, Bailey Hongzhuang was an extraordinary and considerate woman. It was really rare to see someone who could bear to be unfaithful to her. Beichen is under much more pressure than we are because of the Tears of Glacial Flame. These days I haven't seen him reveal a true smile. Since he can now chat with a confidant, that's great. Xiron's lips curled into a faint smile. This brother of his had been suppressing many things in his heart, and was unwilling to say them out loud. These days they had been anxious about the tears of glacial flame. But Di Baichen was definitely the one who suffered the most. Seeing Xiron and Bailey Hongzhuang's tacit understanding, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but sigh. Speaking of which, her impetuous personality was really slow in this aspect. When Di Baichen went downstairs, he was brought to the private room by the waiter. He saw that Di Yujue had already ordered a table of dishes and was waiting for him. "Little brother, you're here." Seeing Di Baichen appear, Di Yujue's face quickly revealed a smile. He immediately waved to Di Baichen sit. After Di Baichen saw Di Yujue, his mood obviously improved a lot. The heaviness that had been suppressed in his heart for the past few days also quietly dissipated. "I'm here to drink with you today." Di Yujue laughed. "You should be free, right?" Di Baichen nodded, "Of course." "I just didn't expect that a busy person like you would have time to drink with me." Hearing this, Di Yujue chuckled and said, "I'm going to leave Penglai Island soon. I don't know when we'll meet again, so I came to drink with you before I leave." Chapter 3270. It had been a long time since he had met a young man that he was comfortable with. Since he had met a fated person, it would be a pity if they never met again. Thus, he might as well drink to his heart's content before leaving. This time his trip to the outside world was of great importance. If this news was true, then everything would be fine. If it was all for naught, then the situation would be even worse. "I see." Di Baichen's eyes flashed with understanding. He had only just met Di Yujue. He did not expect the latter to leave so soon. However, all good things must come to an end. It was already good that they were fated to meet each other. "Since you are leaving soon, then I will definitely drink to my heart's content with you today." Seeing that Di Baichen did not ask about the reason for his departure, and where he was going, Di Yujue's eyes revealed a trace of admiration. Perhaps the reason why he and Di Baichen could get along so well was also related to Di Baichen's character of never asking about details. "That's undoubtedly the best." Di Yujue picked up his wine cup. "Let me toast you." The two drank to their heart's content and chatted about everything. However, they rarely talked about themselves. However, this did not hinder their conversation. On the contrary, the two of them chatted happily. However, during this process, both of them knew that the other was not in a good mood. Both of them were somewhat depressed and heavy. "By the way, did you get any treasures at the auction this time?" Di Yujue smiled at Di Baichen and asked. Hearing this, Di Baichen shook his head. "I didn't bid for anything. The only thing I wanted to bid for has not been bought yet." Regarding this, he really felt helpless. Thinking about how Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were worried about him, he felt very uncomfortable in his heart. Speaking of which, the reason why they were like this was all because of him. Di Baichen also knew in his heart that if they wanted to get the tears of frigid flame, they would most likely have to start with Di Yujue. However, when he came to find Di Yujue, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were silent about it. How could he not understand the deep meaning behind this? Thinking about how Bailey Hongzhuang might become once he fell into eternal sleep, Di Baichen's heart constantly throbbed with pain. Therefore, he had no choice but to be selfish. For his beloved Hongzhuang, even if there was only a glimmer of hope, he had to work hard. In fact, death was not scary to him. Leaving Hongzhuang was the scariest thing. It was a pain that he could not bear. The tears of frigid flame. Di Baichen smiled slightly, then sighed and said, "The bidding for the tears of frigid flame in this auction was really too intense. I didn't even have the chance to intervene." Following Di Baichen's words, Di Yujue also understood. "I also heard about this matter." Caused quite a stir. Even a few days after the auction ended, there were still many people lamenting about this matter. However, what do you want the tears of frigid flame for? At this moment, Di Yujue couldn't help but think of what Di Lao had said to him before. Di Lao felt that Di Baichen was very likely the person they were looking for. Although he could see through Di Beichen's disguise, he couldn't see Di Beichen's true appearance. Regarding this, he couldn't make a judgment. Chapter 3271. Di Yujue was well aware of the effects of the tears of frigid frost. Normal cultivators wouldn't need the tears of frigid frost at all. Could it be that Di Beichen was the person they were looking for? However, seeing that Di Beichen was safe and sound, and that his aura had reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm, Di Yujue couldn't help but dismiss this idea. This was simply impossible. Even the people in their family couldn't do this, so how could the outside world do it? My wife is an alchemist. Di Beichen smiled faintly. She usually likes to study some special medicinal herbs. However, she is very talented in this area and has always been called a genius alchemist. According to Di Beichen's wishes, he didn't want to lie to Di Yujue. However, his physique was really a big weakness. Moreover, they didn't know the reason why the Golden Flame auction house was collecting the tears of frigid frost, so he couldn't do anything. Currently, the safest explanation was the one they had thought of before. Regarding this, he could only apologize to Di Yujue. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Di Yujue finally understood. He had also seen many alchemists with strong alchemy skills, especially some alchemists who liked to innovate. Usually, they would always think of combining some herbs to make special pills. It was also because of the existence of these alchemists who liked to research and were full of creativity that alchemy could continue to develop. Towards this kind of alchemist, he was also very respectful. After all, there weren't many people who could be so creative. Even if they were alchemists, most alchemists could only refine medicinal pills according to the recipe. They didn't even have the idea of creating their own. I see. Di Yujue chuckled. Is your wife the one who was sitting next to you when we met last time? Although Bailey Hongzhuang was dressed as a man, Di Yujue could tell at a glance that she was a woman. Seeing that Di Yujue saw through all his disguises, Di Beichen didn't find it strange. He immediately smiled and nodded. Yes, she is my wife. I didn't expect you to be married at such a young age. That's pretty good. Di Yujue drank a glass of wine. Most of the cultivators on Penglai Island would get married very late. After all, when they were in the outside world, they would have spent all their time on cultivation. Not to mention, it was not easy to find a partner who was as strong as them. Now that he thought about it, he understood that Di Beichen's group of 4 were probably 2 pairs of partners. This was very interesting. Actually, my wife and I just got married not long ago. After that, we came to Penglai Island and found that there were many strong people on Penglai Island. We were really frogs in a well before. Almost everyone will have this feeling when they come to Penglai Island for the first time. However, even in Penglai Island, we are just frogs in a well. Di Yujue shook his head. However, people walk to a higher place. It is normal to walk from a small place to a big platform. Listening to Di Yujue's words, Di Beichen couldn't help but frown. He felt that Di Yujue seemed to be implying something. However, seeing that Di Yujue didn't intend to continue talking about this point, Di Beichen stopped asking. Chapter 3272. Is your wife disappointed that she wasn't able to win back the tears of frigid flame? Di Yujue stared at Di Beichen and slowly asked. Hearing this, Di Beichen couldn't help but think of Bailey Hongzhuang's worried look recently. He couldn't help but nod and said, indeed, she has been a little depressed recently. Ever since the problem with his physique exploded, Bailey Hongzhuang had been very depressed, and the smile on her face was no longer the same as before. Thinking back to when he and Bailey Hongzhuang walked step by step from Fengbo country to the big platform, no matter what kind of problem they encountered, Bailey Hongzhuang was always full of confidence, and there was never a trace of despair on her face. When the boat reaches the bridgehead, everything will be fine. There is always a way out. These were the beliefs that Bailey Hongzhuang had always firmly believed in. However, the problem with his physique was a heavy blow to Bailey Hongzhuang, causing Bailey Hongzhuang's mood to be extremely heavy recently. Seeing Di Beichen's worried look, Yujua's eyes flashed with a light, and the corner of his lips curled up. He said, I didn't expect you to be such a righteous person. You value your wife so much. Most cultivators only cared about their own interests, and there weren't many who wholeheartedly thought about their partner. After all, just increasing one's cultivation required a lot of time, and this was also the reason why many people didn't have a partner. Beichin smiled faintly. I've made a fool of myself. But my wife loves me deeply, so it's only right for me to treat her like this. Haha. Yujua laughed brightly. Seeing you like this, it reminds me of me 20 years ago. It seems that we are indeed the same kind of people. You love your wife as much as you love your life. Actually, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Thinking back, he and his wife were also stuck together like glue and were very loving. If that incident hadn't happened, he and his wife would still be the same as 20 years ago. Unfortunately, his wife didn't want to see him at all. Yujua's reaction was clearly beyond Beichin's expectations. He didn't expect Yujua to react the same way as him. The smile on his face immediately brightened. I think that's what every man should do. Yujua nodded slightly. That's right. Those guys don't understand the true joy in this. If they only focus on cultivation, won't it be boring in the end? Speaking of which, I just heard a piece of news. It seems that your surname is D? Hearing this, Beichin was slightly startled. He was no stranger to this question. Back when he was on the Emerald Island, the old man had also asked him the same question. However, ever since he was young, he had never felt that there was anything wrong with the surname D. On the contrary, after he came to Penglai Island, everyone seemed to have some doubts about his surname. Not bad. Speaking of which, it's really a coincidence that my surname is also D. Yujua's smile widened. Perhaps it's the will of the heavens. On Penglai Island, there are very few people with the surname D. Beichin's eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of surprise. Your surname is also D? Yujua nodded. That's right. To be honest, I haven't met anyone with the surname D since I was young. What a coincidence. Beichin chuckled. As for his surname, Beichin also knew the origin of it. Chapter 3273. With Si Tuyen's eyesight, he could tell at a glance that this jade pendant was not ordinary. It was definitely a precious item. And on this jade pendant was a single word D. After seeing this jade pendant, Si Tuyen thought for a long time. He felt that this was the only keepsake Beichin had, and it was very likely to represent Beichin's identity. As for the meaning of the word D, Si Tuyen couldn't figure it out in a short time. In the end, after thinking about it, he felt that it was very likely to be a surname. Therefore, he dismissed the idea of having Beichin use the surname Si Tuyen, and named him Beichin. In fact, until now neither Si Tuyen nor Beichin knew the true meaning of the word D. However, Beichin felt that using it as a surname was quite good. This was the only connection between him and his birth parents. Haha, that's why I said that everything is fate. Yujua laughed loudly. For this fate we must drink. Alright. Beichin raised his wine cup. The two clinked their cups, and immediately drank the wine in one gulp. Their faces were filled with joy. In this vast sea of people, it was very difficult to meet someone who was extremely congenial with him. Moreover, the other party had so many characteristics that were similar to him. It was really too much fate. Little brother, since you and I are so fated, then I'll give you a portion of these tears of frostfire. It's also to make your wife happy. Yujua was obviously in a very good mood. He immediately decided to give a portion of these tears of frostfire to Beichin. Hearing Yujua's words, Beichin couldn't help but be stunned. He stared blankly at Yujua. This surprise was really too big, and for a moment he couldn't come back to his senses. Previously, he had been thinking about how to ask Yujua for a portion of the tears of frosty flame, but he had never thought of how to ask. Furthermore, there was nothing he could take out in exchange. However, in order to be able to continue being together with Hong Zhuang, even if he had to be thick-skinned and shameless, he had to get the tears of Frosty back. However, before he could even open his mouth, Yujue had already decided to give him the tears of frigid flame. How could he not be shocked? For me? Baichin couldn't help but raise his voice. His handsome face couldn't hide the astonishment and surprise. Looking at Baichin's expression, Yujue's smile widened. That's right, I'll give it to you as long as you and your wife are happy. He owed his wife too much over the years, but unfortunately, he couldn't make up for it even if he wanted to. Now that he and Baichin were so fated, he naturally didn't want Baichin to be like him, only able to see his wife unhappy. Although the tears of Frostfire were very important to them, they had collected quite a lot over the years. Giving away a portion wasn't a problem. Most importantly, it was rare for him to meet such a fated person. After receiving Yujue's confirmation, Baichin couldn't help but feel a trace of ecstasy. Their biggest problem had been solved just like that. How could he not be happy? Young Master D, thank you so much. Baichin couldn't help but stand up. The joy on his face couldn't be concealed. Perhaps this wasn't a big deal to Yujue, but it was equivalent to saving his life. Chapter 3274. Of course, to Baichin, the pain of not being able to break through due to the suppression of his physique was far from comparable to the pain of seeing Bailey Hongzhuang sad. Recently, Bailey Hongzhuang had spent almost all of her efforts on him. In order to help him break through, Bailey Hongzhuang had put in a lot of effort. If Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't an alchemist, their current situation would be even worse. However, he also knew that it was precisely because of Bailey Hongzhuang's attainments in alchemy and medicine that she couldn't help him solve the problem of his physique. This was what made Bailey Hongzhuang feel the most pain. To be able to cure other cultivators, but not be able to do anything for the person you love, this was an indescribable pain for anyone. During this period of time, Baichin was in pain, and Bailey Hongzhuang was in pain as well. When they faced each other, the guilt in their hearts towards each other deepened. This was the worst thing. But now Yujue's words gave him hope. Now that they had gathered all of the medicinal ingredients, they were only missing a portion of the tears of cold flame. Once they gathered all of the medicinal ingredients, they would no longer have to worry. Seeing Baichin so happy, Yujue couldn't help but chuckle. Even though he already knew how much Baichin cared about his wife, Baichin's wild joy still exceeded his expectations. Even so, Yujue felt happy for Baichin from the bottom of his heart. This was because when he saw Baichin at this moment, it was as if he saw himself more than 20 years ago. Being able to see others happy was also a very good thing. It's rare for you and me to be so fated. I'm naturally willing to help you. There's no need to be so grateful. It's as if I saved your life. Yujue laughed and waved his hand. Quickly sit down. Listening to Yujue's words, Baichin really wanted to say that Yujue's actions had indeed saved his life. This was a true life-saving grace. However, in the end, Baichin still didn't say these words, but he had already firmly remembered all of this in his heart. If there was a place where he could repay Yujue in the future, he was willing to go through fire and water without hesitation. Although Yujue said it lightly and looked extremely indifferent, Baichin knew that the value of the tears of cold flame was not simple. If it was really so easy to take it out, when Steward Qin went to find Steward Jin wouldn't have disagreed. Such a rare medicinal ingredient, Yujue gave it to him without any compensation. This already proved how important his position as a friend in Yujue's heart was. He was grateful from the bottom of his heart. In fact, not only was Baichin pleasantly surprised by Yujue's gift at this moment, Yujue would also be glad that he made such a decision in the future after knowing everything. Otherwise, he would really regret it for the rest of his life. Young Master D, I'm really grateful to you. Baichin couldn't help but say it again. His pair of dark eyes full of gratitude. Haha. Seeing Baichin so persistent, Yujue couldn't help but laugh. Since you and I are already friends, you don't have to call me Young Master D. My name is Yujue. Chapter 3275. After Di Yujua heard Di Beichen say his name, the smile in his eyes couldn't help but deepen. He already knew Di Beichen's name from Di Lao, and at the same time, he also knew that Di Beichen had always considered himself as Di Beichen on Penglai Island. At this moment when Di Beichen told him his name, he said his real name. This proved that Di Beichen also valued this friend of his. Being honest with him made him feel very satisfied. At least he didn't misjudge him. Come, let's continue drinking. Di Yujue raised his wine cup. It's been a long time since I met a friend who can drink to his heart's content. I didn't expect it to be a young man who is younger than me by more than 20 years. Following Di Yujue's words, Di Beichen's eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of surprise. The Di Yujue in front of him was extremely young. He looked like he was only 20 or 30 years old, but according to Di Yujue, he seemed to be 40 or 50 years old. This was completely different from what Di Beichen thought before. He really couldn't see Di Yujue's age. What? Are you very surprised? Di Yujue looked at Di Beichen's slightly sluggish appearance and already understood Di Beichen's thoughts. He couldn't help but chuckle. In fact, even he himself felt that it was very strange that he would get along so well with such a little guy. This is a bit out of my expectations. Di Beichen frankly admitted that he always felt that Di Yujue should be in existence similar to a big brother. He didn't expect that Di Yujue's age was already enough to be his elder. However, it was very difficult for people to associate Di Yujue with his real age. Di Beichen couldn't help but think of the rejuvenation pill. Could it be that Di Yujue also took the rejuvenation pill so his appearance became like this? Ever since he came to Penglai Island, he already knew that there were many things that did not exist in the outside world here. It was not strange for Penglai Island to have the rejuvenation pill. That's nothing. As one's cultivation increases, one's appearance will remain unchanged. If one's breakthrough speed is fast enough, one will become younger and younger. This is also the reason why everyone has been pursuing the path of cultivation. Not only for a longer lifespan but also to maintain your youth for a longer period of time. I believe you will do the same in the future. Di Yujue smiled faintly. He was able to determine Di Beichen's age. To be able to cultivate to the 5th level of the Purple Realm at such a young age was already considered a genius. In the future, if you meet someone stronger, they might look the same age as you. Some might even look younger than you, but they are already old monsters who have cultivated for many years. So that's how it is. Di Beichen nodded with a sigh. According to Di Yujue's explanation, he shouldn't have taken the rejuvenation pill. It was only due to the increase in his strength that his appearance remained at the age of 20 or 30. Di Beichen couldn't help but think of Lan Yunxiao and the others. Lan Yunxiao and the others were already geniuses, but they were also unable to achieve this. Then how strong was Di Yujue's talent in cultivation to be able to achieve this? He couldn't guess, but he couldn't help but admire Di Yujue. This kind of person was a true expert. The path of cultivation is very long. You will slowly understand it in the future. This process from not knowing to knowing is also very interesting. Chapter 3276. Di Beichen and Di Yujue were drinking while listening to Di Yujue's words. They suddenly felt as if their horizons had been broadened. Previously, when he was in the outside world, he felt that as long as his cultivation reached the Purple Realm, he would not be far from the peak. However, according to Di Yujue, the path of cultivation was simply endless. It was impossible for one's cultivation to be unable to break through after reaching a certain level. It was just that as one's cultivation grew stronger, it would be harder to break through. However, there would always be a lack of geniuses among human cultivators. Just because you could not do it did not mean that others could not do it. There would always be a genius who would appear and break through the shackles of this realm. Perhaps it was because of this that cultivation was so popular and continued to develop. Di Beichen had a deep understanding of this. He also felt that Di Yujue's strength was much more tyrannical than his own. No wonder he could not sense Di Yujue's strength at all. That was because the difference in strength between the two of them was simply too great. For such a cultivator, Even the slightest bit of unfavorable thoughts would be immediately discovered by the other party. This was the difference between them. Baechan had a faint feeling in his heart that Yujua's cultivation talent was definitely not inferior to his own. However, Yujua had lived for more than 20 years more than him. Baechan simply could not imagine what kind of cultivation he had now. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two had been waiting in the room for Baechan to return. However, Baechan had obviously been gone for a long time. Even though it was already past dinner time, they did not see Baechan return at all. Regarding this, the three of them were surprised and could only continue to wait. However, according to the waiter's description, Baechan seemed to have been drinking with the other party without leaving the private room. It seems that they really hit it off well. After chatting for so long, they still haven't finished talking. That's really amazing. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but sigh. If it were her, she wouldn't have much to say to a cultivator she had just met. Seeing this, Wen Ziren and Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh out loud. Don't think too much. Just focus on your cultivation and wait for Baechan to return. Baechan didn't return to the house until it was late at night. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two couldn't help but stop cultivating and look at Baechan. Baechan, you're finally back. You took a really long time to eat this meal. Seeing that Baechan had returned, Ziren couldn't help but tease him. However, Baechan didn't answer Wen Ziren's words. Instead, he walked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed Baechan's serious expression, and her expression couldn't help but change a little. She took the initiative to ask, "What happened?" "Wife, I have news to tell you," Baechan said in a deep voice. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Her pretty face was quietly covered with a touch of seriousness. Many thoughts instantly appeared in her mind. Could it be that Baechan and Yujua talked about the tears of glacial flame and Yujua directly gave an impossible answer, cutting off all their hopes? What news? When she said this, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't notice the nervousness in her expression. "We will have the tears of glacial flame very soon," Baechan slowly said. Chapter 3277. The room fell into silence for a moment. Bailey Hongzhuang, Wen Ziran, Shangguan Yingying, and the three beasts all looked at Baechan with dull eyes. Their minds seemed to be unable to turn around for a moment, and they only thought that they had heard wrong. What did you say?" Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask. In that instant she felt that she might have heard wrongly. Her voice was filled with uncertainty. "I said, we will soon have the tears of frostfire." Baechan's face broke into a radiant smile. In that instant, it was as if the dark clouds had dispersed and the sun had shone upon the earth. It was filled with warmth and dispersed the gloominess in everyone's hearts. "Is what you said true?" Even though she had already heard it twice and was certain that she had not heard wrongly, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but emphasize it again. This was because this surprise had come too suddenly. It was so sudden that it was hard to believe. Baechan did not find Bailey Hongzhuang's reaction strange. In fact, when he heard Yujua say that he would give the tears of frostfire to him, he could not help but ask again and again. "That's right, it's true." Following Baechan's words, the atmosphere in the room froze for a moment. However, in the next second it completely exploded. "How can this be? Did the person you met agree to give us the tears of frostfire? What kind of request did he make? Why would he give us the tears of frostfire? Then when will he give us the tears of frostfire? Will he change his mind? How did you all discuss it?" In an instant, Bailey Hongzhuang, Wen Ziren, Shangguan Yingying and the three beasts all spoke at once. This was a great news to them and they were extremely curious about the process. Previously, when Baechan left, they felt that this was their only hope of obtaining the tears of frostfire. However, based on their understanding of Baechan, they thought that Baechan would not take the initiative to mention this matter. Hence, they did not have any hope. However, now that Baechan had returned and given them such a huge surprise, how could they not be surprised? Baechan looked at everyone's questions and did not know where to start. However, he could feel everyone's deep surprise and concern. He could not help but feel a wave of warmth in his heart. You all have so many questions. Which one do you want me to answer first? Debachin asked with a smile. Xiron waved his hand and said, Forget it, we might as well not ask. You can just tell us the entire process. When he said this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying could not help but laugh. Debachin had been away for so long this time. If he wanted to tell them everything, how long would it take? However, if Debachin was willing to tell them, they would be more than happy to listen. The friend I met is called Diyujue. Coincidentally, he has the same surname as me. Debachin smiled faintly. He asked me if I had taken a fancy to anything at the auction, and I told him about the Tears of Frostfire. In the end, he decided to give me the Tears of Frostfire. That's how it happened. That's it? Chapter 3278. Not only did Wen Xiren have this feeling, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying also had the same feeling. Previously, in order to obtain the Tears of Frigid Heat, the road ahead was really difficult. They had almost exhausted all the methods they could think of, but the final result was still hopeless. According to their judgment, it should be very difficult to obtain the Tears of Frigid Heat no matter what. After all, the Golden Flame auction house had always shown such an attitude. But Debachin only had a meal with the other party and easily obtained the Tears of Frigid Heat. Wasn't this too unbelievable? Debachin nodded. His eyes clear and calm. Yes, that's right. I'm also speechless. Didn't the Golden Flame auction house say that the Tears of Frigid Heat can't be sold? Even Steward Qin was rejected. You only went over for a while and already got the Tears of Frigid Heat. I'm really convinced. When Xiren couldn't help but give Debachin a thumbs up, but the smile on his face was getting wider and wider. This was really good news for them. Shangguan Yingying also gave Debachin a thumbs up. Bachin, you're the one who really hit it well. I was wondering why you suddenly met such a person. Turns out that all of this was a trick. They had worked so hard to solve the problem that they couldn't solve, but Debachin just met a friend and solved it. How could they not be happy? Bailey Hongzhuang's face was always full of smiles. After hearing the news that Debachin brought back, she felt relaxed. After coming to Penglai Island for so long, her spirit had always been tense. Now she could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Listening to the banter between Xiren and Shangguan Yingying, Debachin couldn't help but chuckle. When I met Diyujue, I really didn't think so. When he mentioned it today, I also found it hard to believe. Looks like, Bing, you're truly blessed by the heavens. We've prepared for so long, but we didn't expect that in the end, there would be a light at the end of the tunnel. It didn't take any effort at all. Bailey Hongzhuang had a big smile on her face. This feeling of being suddenly enlightened was really delightful. Debachin nodded with a faint smile. Diyujue is probably my benefactor. If it wasn't for Dijujue's appearance, they didn't know when they would be able to resolve this situation. We really have to thank him this time. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were also shining with gratitude. Dijujue's gift was tantamount to saving Debachin's life. This life-saving grace was enough for them to remember for the rest of their lives. By the way, Bachin, did he say when he would give you the Tears of Glacial Flame? Xiren couldn't help but ask. He wasn't doubting Dijujue's credibility. It was just that as long as this thing wasn't in his hands, he was still a little worried. What's more, with Debachin's current situation, it would be great if he could solve the problem of his physique a day earlier. If there's no accident, he should send the Tears of Glacial Flame tomorrow, Debachin said slowly. He remembered that before Diyujue left, he had specially said that he would arrange for someone to send the Tears of Glacial Flame tomorrow. Chapter 3279. After returning to the Golden Flame auction house, Di Yujue quickly passed down the news and ordered people to deliver the Tears of Frostfire to Di Beichen the next morning. When Manager Jin heard Di Yujue's order, he couldn't help but be stunned. Previously, Di Lao had done so many things, but he still couldn't sell the Tears of Frostfire. Now Di Yujue actually said that he wanted to give the Tears of Frostfire to Di Beichen? This was too unexpected. However, Manager Jin didn't dare to neglect Di Yujue's order. Di Yujue was Di Lao's master, so he was completely his god. No matter what Di Yujue said, he had to complete it immediately. However, after arranging this matter, Manager Jin still decided to tell Di Lao about this matter. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good if Di Lao took the initiative to ask him about it in the future. After Di Lao found out about this matter, he was very surprised in his heart. However, he didn't say anything and just let Manager Jin do it. As long as it was Di Yujue's order, he never asked for the reason and only followed it. The next day, not long after Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three left their cultivation, there was a series of knocks on the door. As soon as the door was opened, everyone saw a figure that surprised them. This person was none other than Golden Flame Auction House's Inya. "May I ask which one of you is young Master Di?" Inya asked with a smile. "I am." Hearing this, the smile on Inya's face widened and she said, "Young Master Di, my master asked me to deliver the Tears of Frostfire." In the next second, a brocade box appeared in Inya's hand and she directly handed it to Di Beichen. Di Beichen took the brocade box and opened it to see a crystal-clear Tears of Frostfire inside, emitting an alluring fragrance. When they saw the Tears of Frosty Flame, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's eyes lit up. Even though they already knew that Di Yujue would send someone to deliver the Tears of Frosty Flame, they could not help but feel excited when they saw it with their own eyes. "Young Master Di, you can check it. If there's no problem, I'll take my leave first." Inya always had a faint smile on her face. When she received this task, she was very surprised. The treasure that was auctioned off at a sky-high price was now given to a young cultivator by her mistress. She was really curious about who this cultivator was. "Please help me convey my thanks." "I will." After Inya left, Di Beichen closed the door. Then the four of them looked at each other and laughed. Their laughter gradually spread, and everyone felt relaxed. "Beichen, Golden Flame Auction House actually sent Inya to deliver the item. It shows how important you are to Di Yujue." Although they did not know much about Golden Flame Auction House, they knew that as the auctioneer of Golden Flame Auction House's large-scale auctions, Inya's status was definitely not low. Di Beichen's eyes gradually changed. He was very clear about this point. They were just strangers who met by chance, but Di Yujue actually helped him. He only hoped that he would have the opportunity to repay Di Yujue in the future. However, it was obvious that with his current strength, he could not help Di Yujue in any way. Chapter 3280. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said, "I will start concocting the medicine to change the cursed body in a moment. If there are no problems in the process, then it can be changed." In her previous life, she had spent a lot of time researching the method to remove the cursed body. However, the final result was still very satisfying. She believed that as long as she could successfully concoct this pill, then all the problems would be solved. "That's great. As long as the problem with Beichen's body is solved, we can relax in the future." Shangguan Yingying could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Ever since they arrived at Penglai Island, they had always felt a sense of urgency. Because they did not know when Di Beichen would fall into a coma, they had always been in a race against time. As long as Di Beichen could keep his life, then there were many things that they did not need to be so anxious about. Everything could be carried out in an orderly manner, and they did not need to worry about any uncertainties that might arise at any time. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "That's right. You guys go and rest first. I will go into the chaos ring to concoct the pill. There will be no one to disturb me there." "Alright, then you have to work hard." Shangguan Yingying smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently, then turned around and was about to enter the chaos ring. However, just as she was about to enter, Di Beichen grabbed her hand. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but look surprised. She looked suspiciously at Di Beichen and raised her eyebrows, asking silently, "Don't give yourself too much pressure." Di Beichen gazed at Bailey Hongzhuang. His deep and handsome eyes were filled with tenderness and concern. "It's all right." He was very clear that no matter how powerful an alchemist was, there was still the possibility of failure when refining pills. Even if they gathered all the medicinal ingredients, there was no guarantee that there would be no problems during the process of refining pills. They were all confident in Bailey Hongzhuang's alchemy skills, but sometimes being too confident was a burden for Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing Di Beichen's words, the corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly raised, and a bright light flashed in her eyes. "I understand." It was only after Bailey Hongzhuang entered the chaos ring that her expression turned serious. Gathering the medicinal ingredients was only the first step, and refining the pill was also an extremely crucial step. The pressure in her heart was naturally not small. She knew very well that they only had this one chance. If they failed this time, it would be almost impossible for them to gather all the ingredients again. Even if it was possible, Di Beichen's physical condition would not allow them to have more time to gather all the ingredients. Therefore, she had to succeed in refining the pill this time. If she made a mistake, she could lose Di Beichen completely. Just thinking about this possibility made Bailey Hongzhuang feel a little suffocated. This pressure was not something that an average person could feel. She understood that even if she failed in refining the pill, Di Beichen would not care. However, if that happened, she would never be able to forgive herself. Sitting in front of the pill furnace, Bailey Hongzhuang did not immediately start refining the pill. Instead, she sat quietly and calmed her emotions. Chapter 3281. After Bailey Hongzhuang left, Di Beichen and Wen Ziren looked at each other. They weren't as calm as before. Right now, the most important thing was Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as this step was completed, everyone would be happy. If not, they would have to start all over again. Did my words just now give Hongzhuang too much pressure? Shangguan Yingying's face was full of guilt. She was so focused on the herbs that she had finally gathered, but she forgot that there was a certain risk in refining pills. Part of the reason for this was that she believed in Bailey Hongzhuang's alchemy skills too much. When Ziren glanced at Shangguan Yingying helplessly. His Yingying was good at everything, but she always spoke without thinking. She spoke without thinking clearly, so she often regretted it. "It's okay," Di Beichen smiled. "Hongzhuang knows that you didn't mean it that way." I really spoke too fast." Shangguan Yingying patted her head in annoyance. "But I still believe that Hongzhuang will be able to refine it. She is the most powerful alchemist I have ever seen." Even an alchemist like Chu Feihu wasn't Bailey Hongzhuang's opponent. If Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't refine this pill, then it would be even more impossible for others. When Ziren nodded, "I also believe that Hongzhuang will be able to refine it. It took us so long to gather all the ingredients. God will definitely be on our side." The three of them looked at each other and smiled. However, no matter how confident they were, they couldn't help but feel a trace of worry in their hearts. Everything was possible. Before the real result came out, none of them could be sure of the real answer. Therefore, they could only wait anxiously. Golden Flame Auction House. Di Yujue packed his things early in the morning and prepared to leave for the outside world. However, before he left, he still went to see Di Lao. Di Lao had watched him grow up since he was young. However, after that incident, Di Lao had stayed on Penglai Island and didn't return to his family. Di Yujue also thought highly of this old man who had always been loyal to him. "Young master, are you preparing to leave today?" Seeing that Di Yujue had come to say goodbye to him, Elder Di couldn't help but ask. "That's right. There's no time to lose. I'd better confirm it as soon as possible." Hearing this, Elder Di nodded his head. "You're right. This matter is of great importance. The earlier we go, the earlier we can confirm it." If it really is the young master, that would be great. I hope so. A glimmer of hope appeared in Dyujua's eyes. He also hoped that his trip this time would not be in vain. Over the years, he had been disappointed many times, but each disappointment brought him great pain. This pain would continue to stack. Every time it happened, the pain would increase. If this continued, even Dyujua's strong heart would not be able to bear it. Oh right, young master. I heard that you gave the tears of frigid frost to Di-Bei-Chen? Elder D thought for a moment and asked the question in his heart. Dyujua nodded. That's right. Is there a problem? No. Elder D waved his hand. I'm just curious as to why Di-Bei-Chen needs the tears of frigid frost. He asked for it for his wife. Dyujua said indifferently. Hearing Dyujua's answer, Elder D completely dispelled the guess in his heart. Chapter 3282. Elder D originally thought that Di-Bei-Chen was looking for the tears of frosty flame for himself. However, if he was looking for his wife, then no matter what the reason was, it had nothing to do with them. This was because they were looking for a man, not a woman. Dyujua chatted with Elder D for a while before leaving. With Elder D in charge of the Golden Flame auction house, there was nothing to worry about. Chaos Ring. After Bailey Hongzhuang calmed herself down, she began to refine the pill wholeheartedly. Calmly, she threw away all distracting thoughts and completely released the pressure in her heart. She knew very well that the more nervous she was during the process of refining the pill, the greater the possibility of problems occurring. Therefore, she had to refine the pill with a calm heart. Otherwise, once she was distracted, it was very likely that the pill refinement would fail. After all, the level of this pill was not low. With her current alchemy skills, she was just barely able to refine it. Therefore, she could not do as she pleased as she usually did. Stalk after stalk of medicinal herbs were placed into the pill furnace by Bailey Hongzhuang. The entire chaos ring was silent. Other than the slight sound of the medicinal herbs being extracted, no other sounds could be heard. Bailey Hongzhuang's mental strength was constantly monitoring everything in the pill furnace. Fortunately, with the help of the profound ice fire, the difficulty of refining the pill was greatly reduced. Even so, the difficulty of refining the pill was still not small. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang entered the Chaos Ring to refine the pill, Di-Bei-Chen and the other two did not have the heart to cultivate properly. After all, this matter was of great importance. It was not easy to concentrate on it, and even meditate was not an easy thing to do. Therefore, the three of them simply gave up on cultivating and stayed in the room to wait for Bailey Hongzhuang's results. This wait lasted for a long time. When Bailey Hongzhuang walked out of the Chaos Ring, Di-Bei-Chen and the other two's gazes almost immediately focused on Bailey Hongzhuang. However, the three of them did not say anything. They only observed Bailey Hongzhuang's expression. If the refinement failed, they didn't want to give Bailey Hongzhuang more pressure and pain. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was expressionless. After noticing the cautious expressions of the three, she could not help but laugh. Her voice was filled with excitement. It's a success. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Di-Bei-Chen, Wen Xiren, and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but stand up and cheer. Their youthful faces were brimming with joy. Hongzhuang, you're amazing. Shangguan Yingying took Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and jumped up. I knew you would be fine. Haha. The problem that we were most worried about has finally been solved. I no longer have to worry about you suddenly leaving us one day. Xiren patted Di-Bei-Chen's shoulder. His eyes were red. Back then, Di-Bei-Chen had suddenly collapsed and showed no signs of waking up even after using many methods. It had really shocked everyone. He had always treated Di-Bei-Chen as his own brother. He had always felt that this fellow was abnormally lucky and would definitely live longer than him. This was something that he could not accept. Now that he knew that he was finally safe and sound, he could finally relax. Chapter 3283. A single word of thanks contained all of Di Beichen's gratitude and affection. Men were not good at expressing their emotions, so it was fine as long as they understood. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying could no longer hold back their tears. Too much pressure and tension had been completely released at this moment. We must not go home until we're drunk tonight. After his excitement, Xiren could not help but burst into laughter. It would be inappropriate if they did not celebrate such a good day. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others smiled and nodded when they heard Xiren's suggestion. Today was indeed an excellent day for them. That night, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally had a good night's sleep. This was the first time they had slept so well ever since Di Beichen's cursed body had acted up. They felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders, and they slept very soundly. The next day, after a night's rest, Di Beichen's essence, energy, and spirit had recovered very well. He immediately entered the Chaos Ring with Bailey Hongzhuang. Since all the preparations had been completed, it was naturally best to resolve this hidden danger of his body as soon as possible. At the same time, they were also looking forward to seeing how different Di Beichen's body would be after the transformation. After entering the Chaos Ring, Bailey Hongzhuang handed the pill to Di Beichen and said, "I only have one experience of helping to transform the cursed body, so I can't guarantee that it's completely correct." Di Beichen nodded and smiled faintly. "I understand. According to my previous experience, you will feel an extremely great power after consuming this pill. It will feel as if your body is burning and it will be extremely painful. This process will definitely be extremely difficult because the transformation of the physique itself is a very difficult matter. Borrowing the power of the pill to completely transform your cursed physique will definitely be a complete transformation. You have to be mentally prepared." Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichen. Part of the reason why she had such a deep impression of the cursed body was because of the pain of the transformation. However, she believed that after enduring such pain, the transformation of a cultivator would definitely be earth-shattering. "This pain may exceed your imagination," Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but emphasize again. Di Beichen smiled when he saw how worried Bailey Hongzhuang was. He said, "Wife, don't worry. No matter what kind of pain it is, I can endure it." Compared to the pain of leaving Bailey Hongzhuang, what was any other pain? To Di Beichen, there was nothing more painful than leaving Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as he could stay by Bailey Hongzhuang's side, he could endure any kind of pain. Seeing how confident Di Beichen was, Bailey Hongzhuang recalled how Di Beichen had risked his life in the oceanic world. She knew very well that Di Beichen's willpower had always been extremely tenacious. Perhaps his concern had caused him to lose his mind. "Then we can begin now." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a smile and her eyes became unusually determined. "Good luck." In the next moment, Di Beichen placed the pill into his mouth without any hesitation. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth. Di Beichen only felt a scorching power explode from his esophagus and spread all the way down. Wherever it passed, it seemed to bring with it a thick flame. His body felt as if it was burning. Chapter 3284. This was an extremely painful feeling. Di Beichen only felt a flame rising from his dantian, burning every inch of his blood, muscles, bones, and skin. He closed his eyes tightly, still persisting in operating the cultivation method, because he wanted to let this energy flow to every part of his body. Only in this way could he complete the real transformation. Bailey Hongzhuang saw Di Beichen's painful appearance not long after taking the pill, and couldn't help but have a trace of worry in her eyes. This pain was extremely terrifying when she saw that cultivator endure it. No matter how strong his willpower was, it would not be easy for him to endure it. In just a short time, Di Beichen's forehead was already oozing with large beads of sweat, and his face quickly turned pale due to the pain. He frowned, resisting the bursts of pain coming from his body. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but tightly intertwine her hands. Unfortunately, she couldn't help Di Beichen when he was enduring such pain. All of this could only be endured by Debachin himself. The more thoroughly this heat burned his body, the more powerful his body of heaven's will would be. This could be said to be a situation where danger and opportunity coexisted. As long as Debachin could hold on, it would be extremely beneficial to him. Bailey Hongzhuang quietly guarded Debachin's side. This was the only thing she could do. For Debachin at this moment, every minute and every second was extremely unbearable. He only felt that his blood was about to dry up under this heat, and his throat was so dry that it was about to smoke. However, he also found that when his blood boiled to a certain level, some new power would emerge from his body. If he guessed correctly, this should be the power of the body of heaven's will. Different from the power in his body, it was more clear and pure. This power had a faint coolness, like a clear spring in the heat. Although it was very little, it gave Debachin a chance to breathe. As the heat spread wider and wider, Debachin's pain became more and more intense. His face was as pale as paper, and his body was on the verge of collapsing. It was as if he didn't know when he would completely faint. However, Debachin still retained a trace of consciousness. He must not let himself faint. Once he fainted, all his efforts would be in vain. They had gone through untold hardships to reach this step, so how could they fail because of him? Therefore, Debachin bit his lips, and blood flowed out from between his teeth. The sweet taste of blood allowed him to maintain his consciousness. He could not disappoint his wife because he wanted to always be by her side. In this kind of torture and pain, time gradually passed. Bailey Hongzhuang paid attention to Debachin's situation. She found that although Debachin's breath was extremely weak, it was still abnormally strong. This kind of time was not only a kind of torture for Debachin, but also for Bailey Hongzhuang. In the entire hall, only Bailey Hongzhuang and Debachin were left, but neither of them made a sound. Debachin gritted his teeth and didn't let out a groan. Looking at Debachin like this, Bailey Hongzhuang's admiration for him grew even stronger. Chapter 3285. Debachin did not know how much time had passed. He only felt that he was on the verge of collapsing from the pain. Every time he found it hard to hold on, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice and smile would appear in his mind. Then, he would continue to persevere. It was as if his body no longer belonged to him. Under such perverted torment, his ability to endure pain seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. Unknowingly, a day and a night had passed. When the burning sensation in Debachin's body had completely dissipated, he could not help but open his eyes. He only smiled at Bailey Hongzhuang before he could no longer control himself and fainted. The moment Debachin fainted, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly rushed to Debachin's side and supported his collapsed body. After taking Debachin's pulse, Bailey Hongzhuang found that although Debachin's breathing was weak, his life was not in danger. He had only fainted due to excessive overdraft. He only needed to recuperate for a while to recover. However, after a careful examination, Bailey Hongzhuang also found that the power of the cursed body that had been suppressing Debachin's cultivation had quietly dissipated as if it had never existed. After confirming this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but cry with joy. Success! They had finally succeeded. The hidden danger of Debachin's cursed body had completely disappeared from today onwards. His body would no longer be a burden to his cultivation. On the contrary, the brand new mandate of heaven would help Debachin reach a higher peak. Even though the process was extremely painful, it was all worth it for this result. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had been waiting expectantly for Bailey Hongzhuang and Debachin to come out. However, they still had some worries in their hearts. They had been silently praying that things would go smoothly, and that there would be no problems. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang brought Debachin out, they saw that Debachin had already fallen into a coma. They could not help but be shocked. What's wrong with Beichan? Xiren quickly helped Bailey Hongzhuang place Debachin on the bed. He could not help but frown when he saw Debachin's pale face. Hongzhuang, is Beichen all right? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly with a relaxed smile on her face. It's all right. We succeeded. Beichen is just exhausted. He only needs to rest for 2 days. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying finally relaxed, their faces revealed a comfortable smile. We were scared to death. We thought that something had gone wrong. Fortunately, everything went smoothly. Shangguan Yingying patted her chest and breathed a sigh of relief. Bailey Hongzhuang also sat limply beside Di Beichen. She had not done anything for the past day and night. She had only been watching over Di Beichen. However, she still felt a sense of exhaustion. She had been too nervous. We can be completely relieved now. Bailey Hongzhuang's face revealed a bright smile. Even though her face was somewhat pale, her pair of black eyes were shining brightly. Xiren glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, You've worked hard for the past 2 days. Yingying and I will go to the next room first. You and Beichen should rest well. Call us if you need anything. Chapter 3286. 2 days later. Di Beichen slowly opened his eyes. He felt a wave of soreness in his body and the memories in his mind were slowly coming back. He could not help but recall the pain he had been immersed in. His heart was still filled with lingering fear. In comparison, although his body was still aching faintly, compared to his previous situation, this was completely heaven. Beichen, you're awake? Noticing that Di Beichen had woken up, Bailey Hongzhuang's face quickly lit up with a joyful smile. When Di Beichen saw Bailey Hongzhuang's smiling face, his extraordinarily handsome face broke into a smile as well. Wife, how do you feel now? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with concern. Di Beichen smiled and shook his head. I'm fine. Aside from a little soreness in my body, there's no other discomfort. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also relaxed. Your body is a little sore because you've used up a lot of energy. Your body hasn't fully recovered, but you'll be fine very soon. Then is there a problem with my physique? There was a trace of worry in his clear and serene eyes. Di Beichen only remembered that he had been trying his best to hold on. In the end he had still fainted. He was not sure how his physique had changed. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile gradually widened as she said, Don't worry, the cursed body no longer exists. You're now a brand new body of the mandate of heaven. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen's eyes flashed with ecstasy. This was undoubtedly the best news to him. In the next second, Di Beichen pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into his arms. His handsome face bloomed with a joyful smile. He finally did not have to worry about not being able to accompany Hongzhuang for long before leaving. He could still keep his promise and stay by Hongzhuang's side. Bailey Hongzhuang also knew that Di Beichen was feeling complicated and excited. She hugged Di Beichen tightly with both hands. Their hearts were tightly intertwined. They had been worried and afraid for so long. Fortunately, this final result had given them a satisfactory answer. The two of them were immersed in this embrace. Neither of them spoke because they knew each other's feelings very well. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying found out that Di Beichen had woken up, they immediately went downstairs to order a sumptuous meal. After experiencing this incident, this feeling was similar to surviving a great disaster. Beichen, you must be hungry after exhausting so much energy. Xiren looked at Di Beichen with a smile. He rarely saw Di Beichen so exhausted. Di Beichen, who did not feel anything at first, realized that he was hungry after hearing Xiren's words. It was as if he had not eaten for a long time. Haha, I didn't expect you to know me so well. Di Beichen laughed heartily. Now that all the hidden dangers had been resolved, his smile became even more brilliant. It was no longer as difficult to reach his eyes as before. It's not that I know you well. Hongzhuang told us. Xiren spread out his hands. The transformation of your physique has consumed all the energy in your body, so we've prepared a very sumptuous meal for you. Don't stand on ceremony. Eat more, haha. Hearing this, Di Baichen glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang. The corners of his lips curled into a devilish smile. My wife has always been so understanding. Chapter 3287. After solving the problem of the cursed body, Di Baichen was surprised to find that the speed at which he absorbed elemental energy was much faster than before. Previously, due to the suppression of the cursed body, the absorption of elemental energy in the air was very small even if he used his cultivation method. He could only rely on spirit stones to maintain a good cultivation speed. However, compared to other cultivators, it was much worse. If he was in his previous cultivation state with the help of spirit stones, his cultivation speed would be much faster than before. Unfortunately, he was dragged down by the cursed body. Because of this, not only was it extremely difficult for him to break through, but his cultivation speed was also completely incomparable to Xiren and the others. However, at this moment, Di Baichen found that he was full of affinity with the elemental energy in the air. He only needed to use his cultivation method. He did not even need to deliberately attract the elemental energy. The elemental energy would naturally enter his body along with his breathing. Di Baichen had never felt this feeling before. Even though he had an excellent foundation in the past, he had never experienced such a feeling of cultivation. Compared to that, his current cultivation situation was completely smooth and easy. Di Baichen could not help but open his eyes and enter the cultivation state again. After discovering that he was indeed in this state when he cultivated, his face could not help but be filled with joy. His cultivation speed was several times faster than when he was in the cursed body. This kind of experience was simply too heaven-defying. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two sat at the table and had been paying attention to Di Baichen's situation. When Xiren and Bailey Hongzhuang did not know anything about the heavenly mandate body. Although Bailey Hongzhuang knew a little about it, she was not very clear. After all, she was only an alchemist in her previous life. She wholeheartedly studied alchemy. She did not pay much attention to the changes after the transformation. Baichen, how do you feel? Is there anything special about this heavenly mandate body? After seeing Di Baichen exit his cultivation state, Xiren could not help but ask the question in his heart. To be honest, he had never heard of such a physique before. Di Baichen's eyes flashed with a strong light of amazement, and he nodded in front of everyone's expectant eyes. My current cultivation speed is several times faster than when I had the curse body. Even if the curse body hadn't flared up, I'm afraid my cultivation speed would have been twice as fast. As Di Baichen's voice fell, Xiren and Shangguan Yingying were completely dumbfounded. His cultivation speed is actually so fast? Xiren's eyes widened. Although he did not know what Di Baichen's cultivation speed was after being suppressed by the cursed body, he was very familiar with Di Baichen's cultivation speed in the past. If it was 2 times faster than before, then it was truly heaven-defying. Di Baichen nodded. Not to mention when Xiren, even he felt that this matter was too unbelievable. However, he had repeatedly confirmed that his cultivation speed had really reached such a level. This was really a big surprise for him. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile gradually widened. Her beautiful black and white eyes bloomed with a brilliant luster. The heavenly mandate body was originally known as one of the most suitable physiques for cultivation. Any cultivator who had the heavenly mandate body had achieved great success in cultivation. Chapter 3288. Once successful, it would be a complete transformation. Unfortunately, most people would be suppressed when they had the cursed body. However, this was how the world worked. How could one see the rainbow without experiencing the wind and rain? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Baichen and the other two sighed in their hearts. Speaking of which, Baichen's transformation was not easy to come by. As long as there was even the slightest deviation, the only outcome would be death. Fortunately, the god of luck was always on their side. Not only did Baichen resolve the suppression of the curse body, but he also successfully transformed into the body of destiny. In the future, they could look forward to Baichen's development. Bin, your transformation is really amazing. Xiren gave Baichen a thumbs up. Then, a helpless expression appeared on his face. Previously, you were suppressed by the cursed body. My cultivation could not surpass yours by much. Now that you've transformed into the body of destiny, I'm afraid I'll be left behind by you again soon. Without waiting for Baichen to speak, Shangguan Yingying could not help but chuckle. You're always number 2. You might as well stop being so stubborn. After so many years, when have you not been like this? However, as long as you can keep up with Baichen's pace, it's already good enough. Yingying, you can't always undermine me like this. Xiren revealed a helpless expression. His Yingying was a professional at undermining him. Baichen smiled faintly and raised his eyebrows. Yingying is speaking the truth, but this is also good. I've been chasing after you for so many years. Suddenly surpassing you makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm more used to being number 2. Xiren shrugged. If it was compared to others, he naturally would not be willing to accept the status of number 2. However, the other party was Baichen. The situation was different. Previously, Baichen was unable to increase his cultivation. Although he had surpassed Baichen, he had never felt the slightest bit happy. On the contrary, he had always been worried. Now, Baichen's cultivation would soon surpass his, but he didn't care at all. On the contrary, he felt relaxed. Bailey Hongzhuang observed Xiren's behavior and understood the brotherly love between Xiren and Baichen. Only true brothers would have such feelings. By the way, now that the problem of Baichen's physique has been solved, the most important thing for us to do in Penglai Island has also been accomplished. I think we should quickly send this news back, right? Her black phoenix eyes flashed with a bright light, and Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but think of her family waiting outside for their news. Back then, they chose to leave without saying goodbye in order not to burden their family. Presumably, after they left, Mu Lingbing and the others must have been burning with anxiety. However, they had no choice but to do so. Now that the problem of Baichen's physique had been solved, everyone could finally relax. Naturally, they had to send this good news back to prevent their family members from continuing to worry about them. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Baichen nodded. Indeed, Master and the others must be worried about us every day. The last time we left, I'm afraid that everyone's hearts have been hurt. If we can bring this good news back, they will be completely relieved. Chapter 3289. Baichen looked at Xiren and said, "What do you mean? Based on the situation before we came, we should have sent this news back earlier. However, this trip will take a lot of time." Xiren frowned. Previously, they had spent a lot of time just coming to Penglai Island from the outside world. If they went back now and came back, they would waste all their time on the road. Moreover, they had seen too many cultivators with strong cultivations. They knew very well what they were lacking. Wasting time was not a good thing. That's true. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. However, we have to find a way to send this news back. Why don't we try the demon refining tower first? Regardless of whether we can succeed or not, at least we've tried it. This way, as long as we save some spirit stones, we don't have to rush back immediately. After all, whether we cultivate in the sect or on Penglai Island, it's the same. What do you think? I think Xiren is right. Since we have been on Penglai Island for so long, we might as well finish what we came here to do before going back. After we go back, we can stay for a while. Otherwise, it will be troublesome to travel back and forth. Shangguan Yingying expressed her support. If they returned to the demon refining tower after a trip, and then returned after the demon refining tower, then they would spend too much time on the road. Although Penglai Island is very big, the demon tower is the most important thing to us. The other things are not attractive to us. Ziren said again. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen could not help but look at each other and then nodded. They also felt that Ziren's words were very reasonable. In that case, let's go to the Demon Tower first. We can only let our family worry for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Her heart was filled with regret, but she believed that her family was strong. Although they were worried about her and Di Beichen's departure, it would not be a blow to them. If we go back after our strength increases, they will be very happy. Shangguan Yingying comforted. Now that they had finally broken through to the 5th level of the Purple Realm, they finally had the chance to challenge the Devil Refining Tower. If they left just like that, it would be a pity. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and a smile appeared on her face. Indeed, we have to take advantage of this opportunity to improve ourselves. Not only that, we have to find a way to obtain more spiritual stones. There were no spirit stones in the outside world, so Si Tuyen and the others' cultivation speed was much slower. If they could bring these spirit stones back, their family's cultivation speed would definitely increase a lot. As they understood more about Penglai Island, Bailey Hongzhuang was no longer as worried as before. On the contrary, as long as they had enough strength, it would not be a problem to stay here. She believed that even if her father, mother, and master were to come here, they would also be able to live well and would not be in too much danger. Of course, this was on the premise that they did not provoke the 3 major forces. Otherwise, it would be extremely troublesome. Chapter 3290. Beichen, this time Diyujua really helped a lot with the transformation of your physique. We should go and thank him properly. Otherwise, I will feel really bad. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes and looked at Di Beichen. Now, she was also very grateful to Diyujua. If it weren't for Diyujua's help, they would still be in pain. It would be a pity if they couldn't thank him personally. Perhaps their gratitude didn't mean much to Diyujua, but only then could they feel at ease. What's more, they only met Diyujua by chance. The fact that the latter helped them like this showed his sincerity. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen also nodded. His thoughts were the same as Bailey Hongzhuang's. Previously, when I talked about the glacial tears, I lied to him. I think it's better to tell him the reason directly. Honesty is the most basic thing to do. The hesitation in Di Beichen's eyes turned into determination. Previously, when Diyujua asked him, he hesitated, but in the end he didn't tell the truth. Now that he thought about it, he felt that he was letting down Diyujua's sincerity by hiding it. After all, Diyujua had been honest with him from the beginning to the end. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. She also saw that Di Beichen had been feeling very conflicted because of this. She immediately responded, I support you. In fact, this wasn't a reason why they couldn't tell others. It was just that the Golden Flame auction house had been collecting the glacial tears. They didn't know why the other party was doing this, so they always wanted to be on guard. But now that the problem of their physique had been solved, they naturally didn't need to continue hiding it. Ziren and Shangguan Yingying didn't have any opinions about Di Beichen's decision. Speaking of which, the other party had really helped them a lot, so it was only right to thank them. After making the decision, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others immediately set off for the Golden Flame auction house. However, when Di Beichen told them the purpose of their visit, Manager Jean gave them a very helpless answer. I'm really sorry, our young master has already set off for a long journey. I'm afraid he won't be back for a while. This was the second time Manager Jean met Di Beichen, but he didn't dare to neglect Di Beichen. Even if Diyujua had already left, Di Beichen was still Diyujua's friend. He was someone he had to treat seriously. Hearing Manager Jin's answer, Di Beichen couldn't help but feel disappointed. When Diyujua went to drink with him that day, he said goodbye. However, he didn't expect Diyujua to be so fast. In just a few days, Diyujua had already left. In the end, he didn't catch up, and this matter would become a regret in his heart. Because he couldn't be honest with Diyujua, there was always a trace of guilt. However, he didn't know how long Diyujua would be away this time. and whether they would have a chance to meet again in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others left the Golden Flame auction house with slight disappointment. However, before they left, Manager Jean gave them a few invitation letters from the Golden Flame auction house. Chapter 3291. Gao Hanchun and the other two had been busy searching for Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. Xiao Nan had left Penglai Island a few days after the auction had ended. They had even bumped into Xiao Nan when they were searching for Bailey Hongzhuang. However, Xiao Nan did not have any expression on her face when she saw them. Instead, she acted as if she had never met them before and left without looking at them. Seeing this, Gao Hanchun and the other two understood that they no longer had any hope of joining the Crimson Moon sect through Xiao Nan. They could not help but feel a sense of defeat. However, it was mostly due to the resentment towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. If it had not been for these four fellows, they would not have ended up in such a state. Unfortunately, every step of their development was as if they were treading on thin ice. If they still could not find Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, all their efforts would have been for naught. I really don't understand where these four fellows have hidden themselves. We've been searching for so many days but we haven't found any trace of them. I'm beginning to suspect that these fellows have become invisible. Lu Jinggang sighed. This feeling made him feel as if he had returned to the time when they were searching for Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three on Emerald Island. They had spent so much manpower and resources just to find these four people. They never thought that after spending so much time on Emerald Island, these four fellows would still manage to slip away right before their eyes. Could it be that these fellows' concealment skills were really that great? It was bad enough that they had been deceived the first time, but this time they had actually managed to escape? Wouldn't this be too embarrassing for them? Gue Jun's expression was very ugly as well. Initially, he had been full of confidence that he would be able to find Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. However, as time passed, his confidence grew weaker and weaker. He even felt that unless these fellows were willing to appear in front of them, they would never be able to find them. Only the heavens know if these fellows were born in the year of the turtle. They would hide at the slightest disagreement. I really have to hand it to them. Gao Hanchuan's mood was undoubtedly the worst. His brother's death had not been avenged yet. If he let these four fellows escape, he would not be able to eliminate his demonic barrier. His strength would be a problem in the future. Now he had decided to let go of everything and not think about anything else. He only wanted to take the lives of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Let's pay more attention. I don't think the four of them will leave so easily, Gao Hanchun said slowly, even though his words were not very convincing. The three of them sighed at the same time. This kind of feeling of defeat was really hard to bear. The four of them wandered aimlessly on the street. Suddenly, Lu Jinggang looked ahead with a face full of shock. Because of his excitement, he couldn't even speak clearly. Look, aren't those the four guys we're looking for? When they heard Lu Zhongang's words, Gao Hanchun and Gue Jun immediately looked to the front. Their eyes lit up when they saw what was ahead. Sure enough, the four figures walking in front of them were Bailey Hongzhuang and the others whom they had been looking for so many days and hated to the bone. That's right. It's them, Gue Jun said excitedly. Chapter 3292. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three did not return to the inn immediately after leaving the Golden Flame auction house. They had already accomplished their goal in coming to Penglai Island. There was only one thing left for them to do, and that was Gao Hanchuan's problem. The other two map fragments must be in Gao Hanchuan's hands. As long as they could get rid of Gao Hanchun and obtain his Qingkuan pouch, they would be able to piece the four map fragments together and uncover the secrets of the map fragments. These four map fragments had been hidden using such a special method. The things drawn behind them must not be simple. Now that they finally knew the whereabouts of these four map fragments, they were naturally unwilling to give up this opportunity. However, they had no idea where Gao Hanchun and the other two were. Previously, they were so focused on the tiers of frigid heat that they did not pay attention to Gao Hanchun and the other three's movements. Therefore, it was undoubtedly extremely difficult to find them at this moment. After thinking about it, searching aimlessly was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three decided to take advantage of this opportunity to take a look around the Penglai Palace. Naturally, they could not get close to the interior of the Penglai Palace. However, since they had come to Penglai Island, it was not a wasted trip to see the general appearance of the Penglai Palace. Moreover, they felt that Gao Hanchun and the other two must be thinking of joining a certain force. It was obviously impossible for them to join the 100 Flowers Gate. Moreover, based on Xiao Nan's previous performance, the possibility of joining the Crimson Moon sect was also eliminated. Therefore, the biggest possibility left was the Penglai Palace. They thought that they might be able to meet Gao Hanchun and the other two near the Penglai Palace. If they could really find them, it would undoubtedly be excellent. In my opinion, those three fellows have most likely left. With their current destitute state, if they don't find a force to stay in, their days will be really difficult. Xiren spread his hands. In his opinion, if Gao Hanchun dared to cause trouble for them, it would be impossible for him to not make a move for so many days. Since he had not come for so long, it proved that the other party did not dare to make a move on Penglai Island and had left. If that's the case, it won't be easy for us to find Gao Hanchun again. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. There were so many islands in Penglai Island that they could not determine which island Gao Hanchun had gone to. It was obviously impossible to search one by one. They did not have the energy and time to search. Di Beichen put one hand on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and smiled. It's all right. I feel that this map fragment is very fated with us and will eventually fall into our hands. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying were ridiculing him, Gao Hanchuan's face turned ugly. However, he was not in a hurry to make a move, because he still had one more thing to confirm. Let me ask you, are you the ones who helped Yi Lifei frame us on the Emerald Island? Gao Hanchuan's gaze was fixed on Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. Even if he had already determined the answer in his heart, he still needed to get the confirmation from Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. If not, then he still had to find the mastermind behind this. Chapter 3294. This was undoubtedly the question that they were most concerned about. Even now, they still could not confirm who was the mastermind behind the plot. This was definitely not Yi Lifei's own idea. Although they felt that it was very likely that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were behind this, they still needed to confirm it. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others found it funny when they saw the serious looks on Gao Hanchun and the other two's faces. This matter had already happened for more than half a year. They never thought that Gao Hanchun and the other two would still not be able to figure out what was going on. This was truly ironic. Why should we tell you? Xiren stared mockingly at Gao Hanchun and the other two. He could not help but feel a sense of mockery towards these three extremely loathsome fellows. Sometimes dying without knowing why was the most painful thing to do. Xiren's answer had clearly exceeded Gao Hanchun and the other two's expectations. They had thought that they would either admit or deny it. They never thought that this would happen, so they did not know how to answer. Don't tell me you want us to hold a sword to your neck before you answer? Gao Hanchun narrowed his eyes. The sinister light in his eyes grew even more intense. That will depend on whether you have the ability to do so. Xiren's voice turned cold. The sinister light in his eyes was not any weaker than Gao Hanchuan's. The hatred between the two parties had long reached a point where only one of them could live and the other could live. No matter what they said now, it would only be nonsense and meaningless. Gao Hanchun and the other two were very surprised by Wen Xiren's unyielding attitude. According to their judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's powers should not be very strong. If they were very strong, they would not have been chased to such a state back on Emerald Island. It had only been half a year. Even if they had improved, it could not have been by much. If that was the case, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three should be very flustered when they saw them. Why did they not look flustered at all? On the contrary, they looked as if they were as calm as the clouds and as calm as the clouds, not showing any fear at all. This did not make sense at all. Gao Hanchun and the other two couldn't help but look at each other. In the face of such a situation, they didn't have much confidence. They only felt that there might be a trap. Thinking up to this point, Gao Hanchun and the other two couldn't help but look around. They wondered if Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 had found some helpers nearby, and were purposely taking advantage of this opportunity to lure them into a trap so that they could capture them all in one fell swoop. As soon as the conflicting voices of the two parties were heard, it had already attracted the attention of many people. How many cultivators had participated in the large-scale auction at the Golden Flame Auction House? Therefore, many people recognized Bailey Hongzhuang and Gao Hanchun almost immediately and immediately surrounded them, waiting to watch a good show. I didn't expect that the leader of the heaven-shaking faction would be at odds with Di Beichen and the others again. I was wondering why Gao Hanchun kept biting on Di Beichen and the others. It turns out that his younger brother died at the hands of Di Beichen and the others. Didn't you hear what Di Bei said? It was Gao Hanchun's younger brother who came looking for trouble first. That's why they took action. Chapter 3295. Gao Hanchun looked around and saw that many cultivators had already gathered around. At first glance, all of them seemed to be here for the fun. They could not determine who might be Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4's helpers. Thinking of this, Gao Hanchun and the other two's expressions turned ugly. There were many people on Penglai Island who liked to join in the fun. No matter when, as long as a conflict broke out, it would attract a lot of people to watch. Moreover, the other party would not be afraid of your gaze at all because none of the cultivators who could come here were simple. Big brother, could it be a trap? Guijun looked around with hesitation and uncertainty. They were unfamiliar with Penglai Island, and Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 had a good relationship with the Golden Flame Auction House. If the Golden Flame Auction House intended to help Bailey Hongzhuang's group, it would be impossible for them to guard against it. Gao Hanchun's expression was complicated. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4's actions were too suspicious. He originally thought that the other party would think of a way to escape when they saw them. He did not expect the other party to swagger and wait for them. Weren't they a little too fearless? Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 was waiting for Gao Hanchun's group to make a move. Coincidentally, they could determine their cultivation base through the aura they were emitting. Even if their cultivation base was not as high as Gao Hanchun's group, they had the advantage in numbers. Moreover, after training in the oceanic world these days, they rarely fought with human cultivators. They wanted to use this battle to determine their combat strength. However, after waiting for a long time, they did not see Gao Hanchun's group of 3 take any action. On the contrary, they kept looking around with caution. This was interesting. What's wrong with these guys? Shangguan Yingying's eyes were wide open, filled with curiosity. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled slightly. She chuckled. They might think that we're deliberately ambushing them and that there might be threats around. Although Gao Hanchun was very courageous, he was also a suspicious person by nature. Otherwise, when they first met Gao Hanchun on Emerald Island, Gao Hanchun would not have tried to send them to Yi Lifei. In the end, he got himself into big trouble. There's a threat around? Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows slightly and then smiled. Isn't that good? This way, when they fight, they have to pay attention to their surroundings at all times. This is very beneficial to us. Xiren secretly gave Shangguan Yingying a thumbs up and praised. Our Yingying is getting smarter now. Shangguan Yingying raised her chin slightly and said proudly, of course. Do you have the ability to fight us in the life and death arena? Chapter 3296. As long as the cultivators were on the life and death ring, no one could interrupt or help them. Listening to Gao Hanchuan's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three understood his plan. They couldn't help but laugh in their hearts. This guy was really worried about other threats around him. Why do we have to go on the life and death ring? Xiren's rhetorical question made Gao Hanchun speechless again. This guy's way of thinking was really different from others. Generally, when people asked you if you had the ability, you would naturally say yes. Who would ask why? I'm asking you if you have the guts to accept it. Gao Hanchun emphasized, and then his voice carried a bit of contempt. But useless cowards like you, I'm afraid you don't dare to accept it at all, right? Gue Jun and Lu Jinggang also admired Gao Hanchuan's cleverness. As long as they were on the life and death ring, the final winner would definitely be them. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled, and her deep phoenix eyes rippled with a cynical and sarcastic light. I say, gang leader Gao, you have been on Penglai Island for so many years. As a gang leader, the four of us are just newcomers who have been on Penglai Island for half a year. Why don't you take a look at your own cultivation and our cultivation? Now you are making such an unfair request to us. Let me ask you, do you have any shame? Do you have any shame? When Bailey Hongzhuang said this sentence, Gao Hanchun only felt that his face had been slapped hard. It was embarrassing and painful. The onlooking cultivators also laughed. Bailey Hongzhuang's words were really accurate. She directly exposed Gao Hanchuan's sanctimonious face. Indeed, Gao Hanchun had been on Penglai Island for so many years, and the Xintian faction was also a famous existence. However, now he made such a request to newcomers. Wasn't it obvious that he was taking advantage of them? Bailey Hongzhuang's words were not wrong at all. Gao Hanchun was really shameless. Shang Guaniying and the others couldn't help but secretly praise Bailey Hongzhuang in their hearts. Hongzhuang's words were sharp every time she opened her mouth, directly slapping them in the face. In comparison, Shang Guaniying felt that her previous methods were too weak. Gao Hanchun and the other two looked embarrassed. Not only had their plan been exposed just like that, they had even been labeled as shameless bullies. If this were to spread out, it wouldn't sound good. I didn't expect you to be so sharp-tongued. Even the dead can be brought back to life by you. Gao Hanchuan's eyes were extremely gloomy. He had suffered so much at the hands of these four rookies, and now he was being labeled as such in front of everyone. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Thank you for the compliment. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged and accepted Gao Hanchuan's sarcasm without hesitation. But I'm telling the truth. Xiao He and Xiao Bai sat on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and couldn't help but clap their hands. Their master's ability to anger people to death was really incomparable to ordinary people. After seeing this scene, Gue Jun also knew that no matter what they said now, it would be useless. Because no matter what, the other party had already labeled them as bullying the weak. It would be unreasonable to say anything else. Big brother, let's just ignore this kid and directly attack. Chapter 3297. Hearing Gue Jun's words, Gao Hanchun also nodded. Instead of continuing to make a fool of themselves, it would be better to make a clean move. As for the cultivators who might be hiding in the surroundings, they only needed to pay more attention to them. In the next moment, a vigorous origin power aura erupted from Gao Hanchun and the other two's bodies, revealing their true strength. The moment the opponent's aura erupted, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three had already clearly understood the opponent's cultivation base. Gao Hanchuan's strength had reached the 8th level of the Purple Realm, while Lu Jiangang and Gue Jun's cultivation base had reached the 7th level of the Purple Realm. This level of strength was no different from what Bailey Hongzhuang had previously estimated. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's aura also spread out at the same time. All of them were at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Seeing this scene, the surrounding crowd's eyes also changed. Immediately, they were even more certain that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were indeed newcomers to Penglai Island. Otherwise, it would be impossible for all of them to be at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. However, judging from the situation between the two sides, the difference in strength was a little too great. In other words, this was a battle without any suspense at all. Gao Hanchun and the other two, who originally had some doubts about the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, immediately breathed a sigh of relief after noticing the aura of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's aura. In front of them, a 5th level of the Purple Realm was no threat at all. Couldn't be easier to get rid of them. Stupid guys, with only this much strength, you actually dare to be arrogant in front of us. I think you're really tired of living. A thick smile appeared on Lu Zhongang's face. No matter how humiliating they had been before, as long as they killed Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, all the rumors would naturally cease to exist. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's faces were serious. They had never underestimated the strength of Gao Hanchun and the other two. They had to treat this battle seriously. If they were not careful, they could really lose their lives. White Lion and I will deal with Gao Hanchun first. The three of you will deal with Lu Jiangang and Guijun Xiaohei and Xiaobai. Don't reveal yourselves first. Sneak attacks will have the best effect. Di Baichen had already thought of a way to fight. Baisher's current cultivation had already reached the 6th level of the Purple Realm. Although Di Baichen was only at the 5th level of the Purple Realm, with the help of the Blood Aura Field, he could still raise their cultivation by a level. It was almost impossible to kill Gao Hanchun, but as long as they could stall for time until Bailey Hongzhuang and the others killed Guijun or Lu Jiangang, it would be enough. With only you and White Lion, won't the pressure be too great? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little worried. The strength of an 8th level Purple Realm was no joke. If the other party made a move, it was very likely that they would lose their lives. Don't worry, White Lion, and my goal is to stall for time. We won't fight to the death with Gao Hanchun, Di Baichen said. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment before nodding. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang, Wen Xiren and Shangguan Yingying looked at each other. In this way, they had to end the battle quickly. Otherwise, Di Baichen and White Lion would be in danger. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, along with White Lion, had already faced their respective enemies. When Gao Hanchun and the other two saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three had already assigned their opponents, they sneered in their hearts. Chapter 3298. Gao Hanchun and the other two did not care about any of the other party's tactics. To them, they only needed to crush the other party's strength. Di Baichen and White Lion stood opposite Gao Hanchun. Their handsome faces were solemn and serious, but there was not the slightest bit of timidity or fear. White Lion's gaze was very sharp. This damned fellow had repeatedly caused trouble for them. It really wanted to bite off the other party's neck. Seeing that Di Baichen had a contract beast with him, Gao Hanchun could not help but mock. Your contract beast looks pretty good. It should taste pretty good after being stewed. White Lion's gaze turned increasingly cold and vicious. In the past, there had been people who had said such things to it. However, it had bitten off their necks and sent them to hell. Roar! Baisher roared and the roar shook the sky. Gao Hanchun couldn't help but stare blankly. He did not expect that the contract beast beside Di Baichen was not so simple. The surrounding cultivators had long been aware of the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. They were no longer willing to stay here because the outcome could be determined without a battle. However, when they noticed White Lion, their eyes lit up with interest. It was rare to see such a tall and mighty contract beast. They were really curious about how powerful White Lion was. I think it's too early for you to be happy. You might become its food in a while. In the face of Gao Hanchun's mockery, Di Baichen was not afraid at all. His deep eyes burned with a strong desire to fight. The transformation of the heavenly mandate constitution had caused him to no longer feel as repressed as before. Now that he was facing an enemy, he was full of fighting spirit. Hearing this, Gao Hanchun sneered, "Kid, you've only been on Penglai Island for a short time. You'll suffer for being so arrogant sooner or later. However, now that you've met me, you won't have the chance to suffer in the future. Gao Hanchuan's gaze suddenly turned cold. His body flashed and his 5 fingers curled into a claw. He attacked Di Beichen's neck without hesitation. He wanted to break this kid's neck directly. However, just as Gao Hanchun attacked, White Lion took the lead and charged forward. Don't underestimate it just because it's a demonic beast. As a beast king, it's not the least bit inferior to a human cultivator. Moreover, it's currently the strongest in the group. Bang! Gao Hanchuan's attack was actually blocked by Baisher. Seeing this, Gao Hanchun was dumbfounded. He stared blankly at the white lion in front of him as if he couldn't believe it. Even if it was just a casual attack, it definitely wasn't something that a contracted beast could withstand. It wasn't just Gao Hanchun. All the cultivators present were shocked by White Lion's sudden move. Such combat power was beyond their expectations. At the same time, White Lion's true aura was revealed. Sixth level of the Purple Realm. The moment everyone understood Baisher's strength, they could not help but gasp. Their eyes were filled with shock. Oh my god, am I seeing things? This contracted beast cultivation had actually reached the 6th level of the Purple Realm? How did he do it? Its strength is even stronger than its owner. Whoever has this kind of contracted beast is too heaven-defying. Chapter 3299. Contract beasts had always been the most loyal companions of a cultivator. Almost every cultivator hoped to have a contract beast that could fight alongside them. However, it was not easy to find a contract beast that was suitable for them and had the potential to develop. Many of the contract beasts that cultivators contracted in the early stages would only become a burden in the later stages. Not only would they not be of any help to the cultivator, they would also become the butt of everyone's jokes. Many cultivators had not been able to find a contract beast that was suitable for them, so they did not use this opportunity. However, as they grew stronger, there were fewer and fewer contract beasts that were suitable for them. Most importantly, there were not many sealing masters in the Shangxian continent, so the number of contract beasts was also very small. At their level of cultivation, to have a contract beast that was about the same strength as them was already a winner in life. However, the contract beast in front of them was actually stronger than their master. This was simply a great weapon, a great helper in battle. Ever since Baisher appeared on Penglai Island, it had attracted the attention of many people because its tall and mighty figure was really eye-catching. Now that it had unleashed its strength, everyone realized that this guy was not only strong on the outside, but also powerful on the inside. Gao Hanchun realized that he had underestimated this contract beast. A Purple Realm level 6 contract beast. If it continued to develop, this contract beast's potential would be terrifying to the extreme. Baisher grinned, revealing its incomparably sharp teeth. Its pair of beastly eyes stared fiercely at Gao Hanchun. It was going to make this damned guy pay the price. Seeing this, Gao Hanchun was also angered. So what if the other party's contract beast was very strong? He would still cook it and eat it. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang, Wen Ziren, and Shangguan Yingying went to meet Lu Jiangang and Gue Jun. The three of them wanted to end the battle quickly and get rid of these two guys as soon as possible. Only then would they be able to help Di Beichen. Xiao Hei Xiao Bai and I will deal with Lu Jiangang. You guys deal with Gue Jun, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Hearing this, Shangguan Yingying and Wen Ziren nodded. Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao Hei, and Xiao Bai's combined strength was also very terrifying. Even if Lu Jiangang had reached the 7th level of the Purple Realm, Bailey Hongzhuang should be able to deal with him. On the other hand, the two of them were only at the 5th level of the Purple Realm, so they had to be careful when facing Gue Jun. If they weren't careful, they would be in danger. Xiao Hei, Xiao Bai, follow my instructions and launch a sneak attack. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was solemn. She had to make a breakthrough first. Only then could they win. Don't worry, Master. We'll be ready at any time. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. As long as they could catch Lu Jiangang off guard, she was still very confident in dealing with him. Lu Jiangang saw that both Gao Hanchun and Gue Jun were dealing with two people, but there was only Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him. He instantly felt humiliated. Could it be that in the eyes of the other party, he was really the weakest person? You're alone? Are you trying to get yourself killed? Lu Jiangang looked coldly at Bailey Hongzhuang, his anger already showing. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled slightly, and she said mockingly, I'm not here to get myself killed. I'm here to send you to your death. Damned brat, you're too arrogant. Lu Jiangang said angrily. You're tuning into the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.